Dr. Kirschner, how are you doing today?
Hello. I have a bit of a frog in my throat. Hopefully it
Oh,
won't croak.
so glad you joined us today. So I'm Dr. Ben Reeves, an associate of the Naturopathic Medicine Institute, or NMI, working toward my Vitalist Fellow Track certification. The NMI envisions a world where enjoying optimal health allows people to reach their highest potential for inspired creativity. And it asserts that the highest ideal in healthcare must act in concert with the healing power of nature. And today we have NMI associate Dr. Rick Kirschner joining us to talk about the true history of medicine. And this is in anticipation of the unveiling of Dr. Kirschner's narrated movie on the said topic at the next Vital Gathering in Tempe, Arizona, October 13th through the 15th. Dr. Kirschner will also be emceeing the Vital Gathering too. But before we get to our discussion, Dr. Kirschner, would you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, let's see. I'm a 1981 graduate of NCNM. At the time, it was the only naturopathic medical college in the United States. So, boy, have things changed since then. I went into what I like to think of as my public practice as a speaker and a trainer. I went out that world giving speeches and doing training programs, not on naturopathic medicine, but on communication, which all started when I was still a student at NCNM, when Rick Brinkman and I put together a workshop on doctor-patient communication, little knowing that it would turn into an entire career path for us. So in the course of my authored or co-authored 9 books, and one of them was an another. The title is Dealing with People You Can't Stand, How to Bring Out the Best in People at Their Worst. I did that with Rick Brinkman, and that book opened a lot of doors for us. Probably would still be opening those doors, but I am pretty much retired at this point.
So what exactly is this true history of medicine?
Well, speaking work, I would introduce myself to audiences, and this goes all the way back to 1981, 82. I would introduce myself to audiences as a naturopathic doctor, and I'd get these weird looks on people's faces, and it was obvious to me that they had no idea what that meant. And that was that it could then mean whatever I told them it meant. But the problem with that was I didn't understand, how is it possible that this incredible body of knowledge is so marginal that people don't know about it. I would have loved for my parents to have access to this kind of medicine in the latter part of their life, but they don't, and there was just no chance, no opportunity for them. You could say it was driven by curiosity, but I just wanted to know the answers to the kind of questions that I got from people in my audience. Questions like, well, how come I never heard of that? Like Christian Science? Or, I mean, you wouldn't believe the weird things people would say to me trying to make sense out of a term that they were completely unfamiliar with. And over the years, I realized that there was something else going, fragments of the story of our profession, but I didn't really know how to tell the narrative. So a few years ago, I tried to help our profession come out of the shadow of being the best kept secret in medicine by working on our branding. And I put a lot of energy and time into it and couldn't get trainers to be in our profession. In fact, I was pretty much disrespected, I think, for what I was trying to do. So I always wanted, it's the word I associate with Captain Kirk on the Enterprise. You could have Klingons to the left and Romulans to the right, and he'd still find a way to navigate forward. So I thought, get the branding fixed. Maybe I'll work on the narrative, because here in the age of information, everything comes down to branding and narrative, your story. And narrative allows communities to grow, allows communities to build from within. When everybody knows the story, suddenly we're all on the same page. We can do things with that. So I shifted gears, and I put about 300 hours into chasing down sources, challenging the facts, and trying to figure out what's the story here that really explains this. And I tried to avoid hyperbole. I tried to avoid people with agendas and axes to grind. Really tried to get down to what in the world happened. And by the time I was done, I thought, okay, this really answers a few key questions. And one of them is, if you're so great, how come I never heard of you? Another one is, if your medicine is so great, why is it so marginal in the healthcare system? And another one is, if you're so great, why are you spoken of so dismissively by the medical establishment, by the science bloggers, and so on and so forth? So I figured it out. I put it together. I had a lot of help up front with Susanna Sorenko. She is the curator in the Rare Book Room at National University of Natural Medicine. And Susanna had been working on the writings of our founders and had been collating that material and putting it together into a wonderful series of books called the Hebert series, which is now available at the NUNM bookstore online. So she was my collaborator early on. We just worked through so many things. You know, I challenged her, she challenged me. We looked for sources. She is brilliant in understanding the writings of our founders, and what an amazing resource she was. And I put it together as a slideshow with the idea that, look, you should be able to tell people our narrative. So here's the slideshow. And if you've got a Mac, a screen, and an audience, you can run this slideshow, read the script, and you can tell our story. I then looked for a crew to deliver this, to get it started. I signed up about 100 people, but I never really heard back from most of them and don't know what came of it for them. So then I found myself wrestling with the idea that maybe a slideshow wasn't the best way to give people our narrative to where it was useful to them. And I began working on turning it into a movie where I narrate the slideshow and could spice it up with other imagery that really reinforces the kind of messages that I think our story is so brilliant at delivering to people. And I have to tell you that until I did this project, our story didn't make sense to me. It was almost like a bunch of tattered threads laying around that you couldn't tell if it was a sweater or a scarf. But now that I've put it together and I've lived with this now since, gosh, late 2013, 2014. This has been such a presence in my life, this story. And I can tell you that I now see the pattern so clearly. I understand exactly what happened. And it explains to me pretty much our relationship to medicine through my childhood in the 50s and 60s and all the way until now, the 21st century. And it feels more important to me than ever that this story is shared with as many people as possible. I think that if you're a principal doctor in the conventional system, you would want to know this story. And I think that if you're a naturopathic student, you should know this story. It gives context to your education and helps explain what's required of you to carry all of this forward. So that's pretty much what it was about for me. Any questions?
Yeah, so gosh, I have a lot of questions. Where are we at now? I mean, here on June 22nd, 2017, where are we at now with the profession of naturopathic medicine in this story? Well,
I am concerned. And in fact, I had almost completely given up on us after my dealings with the powers that be in our profession around the branding issue and a couple other things. I stepped down. I picked up my guitar and I started playing and
Awesome.
Just thought, okay, you know what? It's retirement time for me. I did my part. I really tried. But something reawakened in me, the desire to try once again to really make this difference for all of us. And it was the NMI. When I learned that Dr. Jim Sensenig and Dr. Eli Camp and others were really working on reawakening the heart and soul of our medicine before it was completely lost, I got inspired. And that's when I decided to take it the final 10 yards, if I can use an athletic metaphor I barely understand. So where I think we're at, we're making little bits of progress in building a container for our doctors to succeed. But in terms of our profession itself, I think that we're in dire straits. We're going to have to really show up and step up in a more potent way if we have any hope of being a point of leverage for making a real difference in the healthcare system. Because we have, it's like the functional medicine and integrative medicine and all these allopathic systems now that are trying to adopt bits and pieces of nature while avoiding naturopathy. That doesn't bode well for us unless we claim certain things. So that's where I think this narrative is profoundly important. When people get this story, they are rightfully angry about the system that's in place today, the sick care system that's in place that is injuring and at unprecedented numbers and has a track record of doing that for an entire century. And I know we can do better. Medicine can offer sort of the let bread rise if we just step up, show up, true to who we are, and get the word out about who we are, what we do, and why it matters.
I'm curious, did it emerge to you, Dr. Kirschner, who we are as you put this story together? Do you feel like you know who we are now as a profession?
Well, it's interesting because I taught at Southwest College for a number of years and did a few classes here and there at Best Sphere and National, and went and emceed the gathering. It was back. I've had contact with a lot of for these years, and it seems to me that more and more the students are getting lost. They don't really understand anymore who we are at all. At least when I went to school, I had a gut feeling about what it was. And, there's only one school and our classes were pretty small. Everything that's come out of the profession started in the greenhouse that was National College of Naturopathic Medicine. And so I'm concerned for our students and I'm concerned for our new doctors because, when you're in practice, surviving is important. Paying your bills is important. And when nobody knows who you are, when your brand is meaningless to most people, then there's no driving of traffic to your practice. It's all on you as an individual to draw people in, to engage them. And to me, that's a crime. It shouldn't be like that. Our brand should be so strong that people see naturopathic physician transforming. So that's a problem for us. And when you have this problem, when you're marginal in the healthcare system, which is really a sick care system, what happens is that people start adapting to survive. They start looking for things they can do that will pay their bills, services that they know there's a need for or an interest for in the community that maybe aren't naturopathic in nature, but I'll give vaccines or I'll prescribe drugs or, whatever it is. And to me, that's just terrible because it further fractures our identity in the healthcare marketplace. So it's not driving traffic, although it might drive a little bit of traffic to one doctor's offices. And I got to say this, you're not practicing. I'm not sure why anybody really needs you, because the MDs already can do all of that stuff and they're better at it than we are because they believe in it and they devote their. I think it's important to practice our medicine to it, and to be true to something, you have to know what it is and understand it. So no, I don't think most of our students know who we are now. I don't think most of the people teaching in our schools know who we are now. And that's where I think that the NMI is so fundamentally important to our not merely surviving, but thriving as a profession. It gives new life, new hope, new energy and vitality to a profession that the world needs to succeed. If you look at our relationship on this, it's a terrible horrible. Humanity is so bad with nature, doesn't understand the value of nature, doesn't spend any time with or in nature. It's almost like people think they're apart from nature instead of a part of nature. That's a problem. Mm-hmm. That's a problem for the planet. That's a problem for the human race. That's a problem for all the creatures and living things. So I think we have a pivotal role to play in the health of not only our country, but the health of the world in correcting that relationship with nature. And I have to say that this is a real threat to the powers that be in the world, what I'm talking about here. Right. I can see how keeping us down serves that system that's so destructive of nature. It's a user system, you know, it's like, let's extract resources. Let's not care about the future. Let's make money, you know, gold in them our hills. Let's dig it up and turn it into cash. Well, you know, what about the kids everybody says are so important? What are they going to inherit? Right. We've got a job to do, save the world. And I think it starts with saving our profession. I really do. I think our profession might very well be the point of maximum leverage, least accomplishes the most. Because if you think about it, when people learn that they can attend to their health needs and their family's health needs using natural means and methods and a natural, it undermines the oil industry, the chemical industry, the biotechnology industry, the pharmaceutical industry, all the big industries that have so much money to spend because they're so profitable on buying up politicians and buying up the press. So keeping us down is a benefit to the system that's killing the world. When we stand up, when we show up, well, it gives me hope for the future.
And wouldn't you say, Dr. Kirschner, this is really the medicine people want? I mean, I just launched my practice in the heart of the Hawthorne district a couple months ago, and it's purely vitalistic, and I'm having pretty decent success. I mean, it's just growing every week, and I'm not taking insurance, and it's pretty clear to me that this is the medicine people want. Now, I am starting small, you know, but I can see, oh my gosh, this is going to get really busy really fast. And I'm definitely putting myself out there, but people want this medicine.
They do. And because you're in Oregon, where people are familiar with us, you know, in Oregon, everybody probably knows somebody who knows a naturopath.
Right.
We're not a secret in Oregon. We're not a secret in Washington, although we're still too much of a secret in both places.
Right.
But yeah, this medicine people want, but if they don't know where it is, where they can get it, they're not going to be able to find it.
Right. Well, I mean, it's interesting though too, because you know, you look at Dr. Eli Camp, and she's got a 2-year waiting list for this medicine in Norman, Oklahoma, right, where we're unlicensed and people really don't know who we are. And then another pretty new colleague of ours who just moved to North Dakota, she's got 400 patients within the first 6 months of practice, and she's doing vitalistic medicine. Now, it is her hometown in I think it's Fargo, North Dakota, I believe, but it's amazing. But maybe this is a function too of these people being good at marketing as well and really putting themselves out there.
No question in my mind. If you can build a successful practice in a profession that's barely known, you've got some skills going for you. Marketing skills, business skills, fundamental skills necessary to build a thriving practice. But think about the people you went to school with. Most genius marketers aren't genius business people. They're good-hearted people who got involved because they were trying to find a way to help humanity or help themselves or help their families. And when they're out in the real world and they're faced with the deafening silence of the system about who we are and what we can do, it's all on them because our brand does nothing for them, drives nobody. It's just not meaningful to people. That's the problem. And even the number of us You know, what do we have? A few thousand doctors. That's
Right.
really a tiny profession. But Bucky Fuller called it the trim tab principle, the idea of being the point of maximum leverage, where doing the least accomplishes the most. I think our profession works that way, offers that to people. We create side effects of health. We create side effects in our communities where people care about each other, care about themselves, care about each other. Yeah, a few people always succeed, always have that. We want to see everybody succeed. And that's where getting our story out, telling our story, getting our story to politicians, getting our story to insurers, getting our story every place that we can, which in most cases means bypassing the mainstream press, because they're not all that interested in covering things that are threatening to their number one advertiser, the pharmaceutical industry.
Right.
So we have to be really wise, really smart, but that's where I think having this narrative, even if people don't show the movie, if they just watch it, learn the story, and learn to tell people the story, that has power. And it's a great story. Like I say in the video, it's a heroic story, and it has heroes and villains, people with motive, means, and method who sought to crush our profession to far to the margins as possible, and who for the most part succeeded. Still alive, that we're still doing this, that people are still going to school, speaks of the strength and power of our profession in the face of all of this.
So, Dr. Kirschner, I know we're just about out of time, and you're going to be presenting this movie and this story here in a few months in Arizona at the Vital Gathering. But can you just maybe bring up one nuance or one interesting facet that you discovered in this story, just to kind of pique our interest or whet our appetite?
Well, I'll give you a couple things. One is that there's been a split in the House of Medicine that dates back to ancient times. It's sort of the difference between doctors who think that physiology is the most important thing and doctors who think that pathology is the most important thing. So this goes way, way back, and I tell that in the movie. I tell that story of that original split in the House of Medicine, is that the people who engineered the marginalization of our profession, once upon a time, natural medicine doctors were preferred in America, preferred in most of the world, were trusted and believed pretty much across the board. And then that changed. And there were a few things that led to that change. And one of them was that regular medicine, and the word regular was associated with medicine because they self-regulated. That's where they got the regular. They regulated themselves. They rebranded themselves at the turn of from the 19th to the 20th century. They adopted the word scientific and started calling themselves scientific medicine. And that branding conceit gave them so much fuel and so much leverage in a world that was just waking up to science that people didn't question the brand. They believed it because their hopes were invested in the word. So anytime somebody tells me branding isn't important, I'm like, that's how we got here.
Right.
That's how we got here. So I tell that story, and it's a fascinating and incredible story. And it really explains how the conflict played itself out and what happened to us. So, and by the way, I also show where we've gotten to. The movie ends with where are we now? And when you put it all together, we're well positioned to change things. We are. We just got to get our house in order. That's what's got to happen.
Wow. Well, I can't wait to watch it. And so where can people find out more about you? I know we're pretty much out of time here. Where can people learn more about your website or?
Sure. You can, I have a website, which my daughter over now that she's taking over the business, but it is at theartofchange.com. And my Facebook page for my network of clients is facebook.com/the art of change page. So I do invite people to go there and like it or whatever you do, because occasionally I post things that I think are useful to people trying to grow the future.
Well, thank you so much. Is there any last thing you want to share with everybody before we close things out?
Gosh, I think I've said everything that I need to say, except if you haven't made the plan to be at that unveiling of this movie, you've got to be there. We're going to have a fun time with it. It's about a 2-hour movie. We've got an intermission about halfway through. I'm super proud of the work that went into it, the people that helped me. And Ben, I'm looking forward to your feedback on the latest version that I've sent you. But come to the NMI in October. You won't regret it.
I am so excited. Thank you so much, Dr. Kirschner, for taking the time with us. We really appreciate it. So,
my pleasure. Thanks.
I think it's a good time to wrap up. Thank you so much. And if you want to learn more about how to become an associate of the Institute, go on over to naturopathicmedicineinstitute.org and watch for our upcoming conferences. The Vital Gathering 2 is October 13th, 14th, and 15th in Arizona. And you can get in touch with us from our website. At the Naturopathic Medicine Institute, the laws of cure are seen to be immutable, and the healing power of nature is acknowledged, discussed, unpacked, and celebrated. Thank you so much.